Ladies and gentlemen, a big, big, warm welcome for AnnIvory, Calvert. That's good. Hi. My name is AnnIvory Calvert, and I am the mother of Coleman A. Young II. Thank you. And the story that I'm going to share for the first time ever, anywhere, with you. Gosh, you must be phenomenal people. Is the story of how I came to be the mother of Coleman A. Young II. And that's because I fell in love with Coleman Young Sr. I really don't know. I said to Satori, I said, first of all, I can't imagine anybody would be interested, but secondly, I really don't know why anybody would think it would be any different than a love story. I don't know what people thought it was. I said to a number of women today, older African-American women, and I said, I'm a sister. What'd they think? And they all went, I know. I said, we're all the same, really. We are all really human beings who, like the two people in the video, are overjoyed in the freedom of love. And so I'm going to share my story with you. I was 28 years old, and I was working for the city of Detroit and in the garage. And you probably say, how'd you end up in the garage? I started off in human resources. At that time, it was called personnel, and I was a civil servant, and I scored the highest ever on the senior governmental analyst exam, and senior governmental analysts could work anywhere in the city in any department and be responsible for shortcutting and efficiency in processes. And I was out in the garage working, what we call the sticks. And I went to work in public works because that's where women could get a promotion, because there weren't a whole lot of them. And I really liked being able to tell Mrs. Smith on the corner why her garbage wasn't being picked up on time, or how she could get her street trees trimmed, or her vacant lot cut. I loved that. I still am like that. Anyway, so I was working in the garage, and I was a student of the processes of personnel, and when I couldn't get a promotion, after doing everything I possibly could to get a promotion, you know, working hard and working harder and staying longer and coming in earlier and working harder and still no promotion. And so I requested a job analysis survey. So personnel came out, they, had me fill out a 14-page questionnaire, and then they followed me around for 2 days. And of course, all my answers were for a position 2 steps up so I could get that one that I wanted. And sure enough, they made the recommendation. And then after they made the recommendation, all that had to happen, because they made the recommendation directly to the budget department with a copy to the public works director, all that had to happen was the public works director had to say, yes. That didn't happen. That's another story. So I'm still trying to get this promotion. It's not happening. And the attorney that took care of my divorce with Ed Bell. And so I went to Ed. I said, Ed, look, I did this, 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 and this, and I can't get this promotion. He says, well, he always called me Annie, baby. Annie, baby, maybe you need to talk to the mayor. I said, that sounds like a plan to me. So Ed set it up, and Mayor Coleman Young called me and scheduled an appointment for me to come to the mansion on July 21st, 1981. The reason I remember the date so clearly, I was thinking about that today. Why do I remember that date? My birthday is the 23rd, and my car was stolen on the 21st. So I go to meet the mayor. I tell the mayor my circumstances and about my car being stolen. And he picks up the phone. He made 2 calls. The first call he made was to Malcolm Dade. He told Malcolm Dade, find the requisition and backdate it. And for me, that was like, whoa. Shit. That is power right there. Because women, you know, we'll get the promotion, but we don't get the money, the back money, when we were doing the job the whole time. And so, you know, that was one of the things that I really loved about him. You didn't have to tell him what you needed. He just knew to take care of it. And then after he got finished talking to him, he picked up the phone and he called the precinct and told him my car was stolen and told him to look into it and get back to him. I was like, get back to me. I think I'm telling y'all too much, you know. That's a civil service in me, you know, coming out like, wow. I'm like, who are you talking to? I thought he was talking to, you know, the desk sergeant, you know. He said, I was talking to the chief. What you talking about? Woo! And then we talked and talked and talked and talked for 4 hours. Books, Bible, and politics. And he told me he was going to have this eye surgery, this cataract surgery. And I said, you want me to go with you? He said, you going to take the knife? I said, no, I'm not going to take the knife. He said, there's no point in you being there then. And when he came out of the surgery, you know, there was a period of time in there. He would call and he would say, what's in the newspaper, baby? And I would have the New York Times and the Detroit News and the Free Press. And he would say, read the headlines to me. I'll tell you which story to read. So I would read the story over the phone. And we got to know each other. You know, what was important, what wasn't important, what were likes and dislikes. And we decided we would see each other again. And I would call him and I would say, can you come out to play? And he would say, yeah. And he'd always schedule time to come out to play. And we would meet over at his condominium over there in Hyde Park. And we lived and loved in a bubble. I'd always been really private, and I'm Mom's first time sharing this story. And we just had lots of fun. He said he couldn't dance, but we would stay up all night dancing. His favorite artist was Billie Holiday. And he told me how the first time he went to New York and he actually rode the A train. And he said, I really rode the A train. You know, the Duke Ellington talks about, it really is an A train. And I took the A train to see Billie Holiday. And I liked Patty Austin and James Ingram. And we would dance all night and talk all night. And I had this really stressful job in the garage. And we had 7 locations, and 5 of the 7 were 24 hours. And I would wake up in the middle of the night with the phone in the bed, and I said, how many men you got? How many trucks on the floor? See, the whole personality changes, doesn't it? And they tell me. And I wanted to be superintendent of vehicle management. But there was somebody already there doing that job. And that person took me under their wing. And because nobody outworks me. And there's nothing that I can't do. Nobody. I feel like that about everybody else too, but you just gotta be willing to do it. I'm willing to do it. And the superintendent of motor transportation noticed that. And so he talked to his friends, because he was getting ready to retire, and he had a circle of friends. These were all guys who had been to the war, World War II, and came back and became civil servants. He talked, and they were all white. He talked to his friends. He said, she's the one. And I was honored. But then they tried guy after guy after guy, man after man after man. And you may recall, those of you that are from Detroit, you may recall there was a time when we had all these one-man packers, that they were brand new and everyone was different, and we couldn't get the garbage picked up, and we couldn't get enough police scout cars out on the road. We couldn't get the police to come. Right, so that's when I was in the garage. And I kept saying, just give me a chance. And they kept ignoring me. And Mary Young, who had said to me, what's your angle? And I was like, what are you talking about? What's your angle? What is that? Angle? Because when you're in love with someone, there's no angle. You just want time. And so he called the public works director. He said, give her a chance. The public works director called me and he said, you got 6 months. Every time I got a promotion, that was what he said. You got 6 months, I'm gonna fire your ass. Every time. Which causes you to put an unbelievable amount of energy into 6 months. And me and the 300 mechanics and the 25 supervisors and 3,400 vehicles went to work. We were one team, and we did things that people would never have believed if they'd seen it, but we did it. We put garbage trucks on the road. We put police scout cars on the road. And I was stressed out and having migraine headaches. Plus I was, never mind. And so, I was saying to Coleman, I said, hey, I keep getting these migraine headaches. And he says, what did the doctor say? And I said, the doctor said it's the pills. Why are you taking pills? What was that about angle? And he said, well, different expletive. You messing with my manhood, baby. You sound like I felt. And I said, what are you saying? And he said, stop taking the pills. Just stop taking them. I was wondering why you're not pregnant already. And for those women who are in the audience that are career women, that's a serious juncture in the road. And I said, okay, as long as you understand what you're saying. What you mean? You think I don't know what I'm talking about? So he said, we gonna work on this. That's probably one of the reasons I really love that video. There's a part in the video where Mr. Saint Suttles, where he just does that. Coleman used to do that when he was talking. You don't know, you think I don't know what I'm talking about? Anyway, I digress. And so, he said to me, the obsessive compulsive worker. Let me just take a little step off to the side here. This is Black History Month. Black History Month, I work for Judge Strong. Talk about obsessive compulsive worker. I talk to Judge Strong maybe 5 to 7 times a day. Different membership application for everybody with the one with the heart I like. Hey, send me that one. That's who I am. Let's go to work. So he said, we're going to work on this. I said, okay, I'll go to the doctor. Yeah, go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor. I started taking these pills. The pills make you gain weight. And so he started calling me Madam Full Bottom. And we went through the physician's desk reference to see everything that he was taking that impacted libido. And he said, why would Claude prescribe that for me? I'm like, you got to talk to Claude about that. And we worked on it. I started taking my temperature, and I called him, today's the day. Okay, well, let's get it on then. And so one Saturday night at 4:30 in the morning, he called me and he said, you want to go to the Super Bowl tomorrow? I said, yeah, let's go to the Super Bowl. He said, be over here at 4 o'clock. So, okay. So the Super Bowl was in Pontiac. And we took the train. The governor had a train. We took the train and went to Pontiac. And he enjoyed the game. And I had to learn football so that, I could enjoy the game while he was enjoying the game. Otherwise, I wouldn't have nothing to talk about while he was watching football, because he wasn't going to start watching football for me. So he loved football. He loved football, baseball, all the sports, but he really loved football and the intricacies of the game. My son's the same way. And so we went to the Super Bowl, and we're leaving. We weren't supposed to stay the whole time, but he had a really good time. Ed Bell was there with his wife, Alma, and we had a really good time. And we were leaving, and we're in this throng, this crowd of people, and someone put their hand in between us. And that was all he needed. Let's go. Out the door. Find the door. Let's go. And so then, him and the security, everybody moves. And so we went outside, and he had 2 men take me by the elbows and carry me to the car because I had on these little sandals. Then when we got to the limo, he put my feet in his lap, and he rubbed my feet until they got warm. He was a gentleman. He was kind and sweet. And he would order food and set the table. It was a Coleman most people didn't see. He was a family man. He was a ladies' man, but he was a man's man too. And we were free to be who we were, full out. Him cheating on solitaire. And me hearing the difference in the cars. I said, oh, you need to stop cheating. But that is who we were. Just having fun. And then on the way back to the mansion, we stopped at Young's Barbecue because we both liked hot food, and we had hot barbecue, and that was the night that my son was conceived. He's a Super Bowl baby. And a month later, I was ecstatic. I sent him a telegram, the stork has arrived, and he was happy, and we were both happy, and then something happened. One of the things that I think he really enjoyed about me is that just as Satori said earlier tonight, I would listen. And I would listen to all the stories over and over and over again. Sometimes he would ask me, did I tell you this story? No. No. But as a result of me listening to those stories, I know things about Coleman Young that people don't know. Did you know that his brother was first black postmaster for the 4th Street Post Office, that G.W. Young Center is his brother, George W. Young? That's his brother. And that Coleman worked at the post office before he worked at Ford's, and that he helped start the Postal Workers Union. He got fired at the post office before he got fired at Local 600. But that's because I listened to that story over and over again. And one of the stories that he told was about how his friends who got pregnant with younger women, how they would make fun of them. Man, who helped you with that? I heard all the stories. So when this came around and his attitude changed, I figured it was one of the stories. And he said, you just need to stop that. You need to cut it off. And I couldn't. I refused. I asked him, I said, is that what you would want for your mother? Is that what you would want for your sisters? Then why would you want that for me? And I can imagine in his 63-year-old mind, he was like, this 28-year-old, what is she doing? But we were in love. We had all these codes. I would call the mayor's office and I would give him some initials and he would come to the phone. I mean, we would meet at the back door and before he would get in the limo and all these little snatches of time. And I never doubted his commitment to the city, ever, once. And so he said to me, I remember the words as if they are still in my ear, you've made a decision that is diametrically opposed to where I am. And my response was, so be it. I said to the 5,000-pound gorilla in the room, take your bananas and go home. So it wasn't easy. I was going to work every day and I was pregnant, and because I had taken medication, I got really big really fast. I was in maternity clothes at a month and a half, I think, and people were making fun of that. And I kept going to work because, remember, I'm the compulsive worker. And the main goal was to keep things out of the newspaper, and so all the guys at the garage, and I worked at that garage over on Livernois and Verner, that was headquarters for us, and so the newspaper would camp up outside on Livernois, and the guys would tell me on the inside, they kept my car inside the garage, which door I needed to go out of. And then in October, my son came right on time. And I was going to work that day, but my water broke. You get the pattern, just compulsive about working. And it's more about accomplishing than it is about working, accomplishing. And my mother said to me, we're going to the hospital. You got to decide something about the name. And at that point, I was like, I don't care. Deal with it. And she said, no, you can't. And so I got down on my knees and I let the Bible fall open to wherever it would fall open. It fell open to the first page of the book of Joel. My mother had read in the Parade magazine that Jane Fonda named all of her children differently, last name, first name, for security reasons. And so she said, his last name's going to be Loving because he's a child born to love. And that's where Joel Loving came from. See, there's another new story you never heard before. So we went to Beaumont, and I had my son, and I asked the lady in the hospital, I said, so, listen, if I don't fill out this pink piece of paper, that's the birth certificate paper, if I don't fill out this pink piece of paper, does that mean you won't let me take my baby home? She said, yeah, we'll let you, my sister's over here, we'll let you take him home, but he'll just be certified as baby Calvert. So that's how my son came home. Then my mother said, wait now, you got to have a record. And at the hospital, Coleman called at the hospital, and my mother talked to him because I was done talking. I really felt abandoned. And he told my mother, tell her I'm proud of her and I love her. I was beyond that. I was like, you got some diapers? So that's me working in the sticks all that time with guys, you know. So we went home, and my mother told him, listen, you need a birth record for the baby. So call your friend, Father Jim, and set up a baptism, because Catholic baptismal records are sequestered. I come from a family of readers, can you tell? That's right. My mother. And so he said, okay, I can do that. So he called Father Jim, who became Monsignor James Robinson. He called Father Jim and told Father Jim, set it up. They were coming, we were going to have a baptism, and he told him what to put on the baptismal record, that he was the father, Coleman A. Young, and that his son was Coleman A. Young II, and that I could give him the rest of the information. And so we did that. Father Jim had a virus, which gave my son that virus during the baptism, and he had viral meningitis at 2 months. So that was our first Christmas. But we made it. We made it because there is freedom in love. And my son grew up knowing who his father was, and grew up, neither I nor his father ever said he couldn't say who his father was, but we knew that he had to have an alias in order to go to school. His father was having all these death threats, and so we lived life. I made my decision about who I was, and he made his decision about his and who he was. And then I got a chance to move to California because I got this job out there in California. And I thought, oh, it's the time for me to file for paternity. I was in law school at Wayne State, and there had just been 2 cases where DNA evidence was used, one in DC and one in New York, and they had to do with the crime, a murder crime, where they identified the perpetrator. And in New York, it was a rape case. And I thought, oh, paternity. They can determine the perpetrator for the rape. They can determine paternity. So in law school, in the first year, there's a class that you take called legal writing and research. And in that class, there is an appellate brief. And it's normally a hypothetical question. I treated the question like it was a real question and had to do with somebody getting in vitro fertilization and whatever in Idaho. I called a real attorney. I called Noel Keene, here, because he was doing in vitro fertilization cases. He was doing adoptions. And so I asked Noel Keene these questions. So as a result, I had this relationship with Noel Keene, and that's who I went to for my paternity case. And from what I know, I was the first woman in the country to file paternity using DNA evidence. I should have done a copyright on baby mama drama. Then you'd never have seen me on this stage. But anyway. And so I went to California to become a public works director. I was the second black female public works director in the country. And public works directors do everything in cities except the finance part. And, they airports, parks, sewer, water, sidewalks, curb and gutter, street trees, all that kind of stuff, garbage. And so I was doing that in California, in Fontana, California. And I used to say I did everything from the 86-cent paper plates to the $80 million San Savine flood control district. And it gave me an opportunity to have freedom for my son, so that he could be whoever God meant him to be. And then we took all those, tests, and so that we could prove to all the people who were back here saying, who helped you with that? And one of the companies came back and said, we don't tell you probabilities, because the first 2 had come back with probabilities 99.99, second one 99.99999, and then the third company said, of the 23 pair of chromosome, 19 matches father, 4 matches mother. And there is a 1.14 billion chance he's the father. So I guess that was enough proof for all of the, who helped you with that? And so as a result, he had to pay child support and education. Education was what I was really concerned about, education. And he then really became a dad. 4 times a year, he took time with our son. I was building an Amway business. Compulsive, remember? I went Ruby in 13 months. 100 grand. 13 months. Took me 13 years working in city government to make 100 grand. It took me 13 months in Amway, and I didn't even know anybody in California. And he could relate to that because he had sold insurance door to door in the Upper Peninsula, and he bought my first set of encyclopedias for me. And every quarter, I was at a major event speaking, and so that's when my son would go to the mansion and spend that week with his dad. And he admitted to me, "You did the right thing." My son turned 12. His father called him and said, "It's time for you to carry the name." And my son agreed. And his father sent Alex Luval to court here to make sure that the baptismal record and his birth certificate matched. And then Alex drove to Lansing to make sure that the record in Lansing was correct. And the only reason we found that out is because in going door to door, my son was running for state rep. Alex Luval came to the door. He told us that story. So, I'm sharing this story with you, not just because Satori insisted. And because she fought long and hard since November. But because, perchance, in this February, in this day after Valentine's Day, that you will be free with your love and know the feeling of what I call #BlackLove, that video, that you will know the joy, the sheer joy of being free to love. And knowing that the true freedom of love exists in the love that you leave in your legacy. You're awesome and wonderful, stupendous, tremendous, God's greatest miracle. I love you and I'm very proud of you. My name is AnnIvory Calvert, and I thank you for sharing this time with me.
AnnIvory is over membership of the museum. So if you want a membership, this is who you talk to. You have anything?
I say all the time that I have 6,000 or more friends that all happen to be members of the museum. And I thank them constantly. Thank you so very much for remembering the right museum, the place where exciting things are always happening. It all starts with membership. And members have privileges because you get me. I'm your concierge at the museum. Always feel free to start with me. Membership is very inexpensive at the right. And I want that for you. That you have that one moment at the right museum where your whole life clicks, where everything makes sense. Why I love the little lady on the corner and being able to tell her, "Oh, I know why your garbage didn't get picked up. Let me take care of that for you." Why I am that way. That is so important. And this institution is so important. So I hope you can find it in your heart, if you're not a member, to become one. And if you are one, to renew. Thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate you, and we love you.
Stay on stage. AnnIvory Calvert. Give a round of applause to all of our storytellers.